All right. All right, cool. Looks like everyone can hear us. Sure, yes, okay. All right, so it's just about 12 o'clock, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Let's see. Okay. All right, and you should be able to see us now. Let us know if you can't. So I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Esther.
We're the counseling interns, and we'll be talking about personal history today. So good, everyone can see and hear us. Excellent.
Great.
All right. Yeah, so personal history. What are you guys expecting us to be talking about today when you think about personal history? All right, we have a few people typing. How my past affects my present behavior. Yeah, exactly. So, sometimes it's hard to think about the past. The quote on the first page says, it's in the past. Like, why am I focusing on that? I should be focusing on the future. But, the past can really inform how you move through the world now. So, recently I was working on my resume and I was thinking about how all of these past experiences that I've had have made me who I am today. So, maybe thinking about what kind of experiences would be on your food resume. So we will start thinking about that. Let's see. Yeah, so there's a lot of ways that our past can impact our behaviors today. So there's been some studies about how your environment impacts your genes and your phenotype. So, back in World War II, there was a lot of famine, a lot of starvation. So they found that even the descendants of people who were alive then have different types of phenotypes. They have different genes that are switched on to accommodate for that. So your body might be reacting to, a famine that your great grandmother experienced, and saving that the fat for when there might be another famine. So there could be things that are, generations back that are completely out of your control that could be impacting you. Could you explain phenotype? So with genes, I think it's like, if your phenotype would be like brown eyes or blue eyes, so you'd have like either two brown genes or a brown gene and a blue gene.
It's it's the expressed gene. So let's say if in your genes you have the brown-eyed gene and you have the blue-eyed gene, but you look like your eyes are blue. So that's the phenotype. That's the expressed gene that kind of made it the dominant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's other genes that are working inside your body that aren't visible, but they can be switched on and off. Let's see, just typing.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Let me know if it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so then, like someone already said, even your history throughout your lifetime, it determines your reactions and your current behaviors. So I had a really bad experience with tomatoes when I was little and I still won't eat them, and that's my personal history that affects what I will and what I won't eat now. Did anyone have like a food that their parents used to make that they really, makes their stomach turn and they have a hard time eating it now? Any examples? Mushrooms.
I know while you guys are typing, I had calamari at some point, and they were really, really bad. And I love calamari usually, but like after that experience, I just couldn't eat them for a while because I was so put off.
I like pretty much all food, that's the problem. Okay. So you've had a lot of positive experiences with food. I think we missed someone's comment. Oh, I don't want to make it too small, but let's see. Okay. I always think potatoes make me fat because I was told that as a child. Right, so those messages that our parents were sending us, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but you know, those things stick with you, they're ingrained in you, and you might not even realize every time you go to eat a potato that you've had this message been told to you. So, and why is it important to be aware of these past experiences and how they're influencing us? Well, as Dr. Phil would say, we can't change what we don't know. So, you know, once you know and can identify something that's affecting you, you know, then you have the choice, you know, to change your behaviors or to come at it from a different angle. But if you don't know, then you don't have the choice. So sometimes old solutions become current symptoms. What do you think that means? Food making us feel good. Yeah, using food for comfort. Yeah. So that's you know, a coping mechanism that, you know, has been been made into a habit after years, right? Because it worked well. But now that it's become a symptom of something and it's not as beneficial. You know, it's affecting you in other ways than it was originally intended. Yeah. Does anyone have any other examples of an old solution that's become a symptom or become less helpful? Okay. I don't see anyone typing, so we will move on. Gotta hit the... All right, so let's start thinking about, you know, when we were growing up, you know, what kind of meals were you eating? You know, did you have one meal, did you have 3 meals a day? Did you have 1 meal a day? Were you kind of a grazer, eating all day? You know, what kind of, were you all sitting down at the table? Were you eating in front of the TV? You know, what, you know, positives and negatives of the way that you used to eat. So, have somebody typing. Food per day, snacks, meals at the table. Okay, so it sounds like it was a pretty planned out, pretty regimented meal experience. We have a few more people typing. So it was a long time ago. Mm-hmm. Is that? I think that's what I'm hearing there. I grew up when TV dinners first came out and everybody thought that they were great. Yeah, convenient. My mother had a home ec background, so we had nutritious meals, sat down as a family and had wonderful discussions. Okay. Yeah, so these sound like all, you know, different kinds of experiences that you had growing up. You know, and I think as we move into adulthood, sometimes, you know, you have, either way, you have a reaction to how you were raised, right? Either you agree with it, you tweak it, or maybe you rebel against it and say, you know, we're never allowed to eat dinner in front of the TV, so now that I can, because I'm an adult and I'm making these decisions, I'm gonna eat dinner in front of the TV. Or maybe you really enjoyed having those discussions around the dinner table, and that's something that you brought with you to your new family. So the next question to think about is, what kind of messages were you sent about food? So were you thinking about food as something to fuel your body? Were you thinking about it as comfort? I know a lot of patients report that, you know, they were told, you know, you have to eat everything that's on your plate. Don't be wasteful. Or, you know, looking for the best deal when you're buying food. So what kind of messages have you been? Take all you want, but eat all you take. Okay. It was comfort and love and to clean your plate. Yep. Comfort, my grandmother would bake, and the message was cooking for someone meant that you love them. Yeah, those are all great examples. So these messages, they become ingrained, and they're kind of what we go back to when we're, you know, in a situation. You know, I want to show someone that I love them. Oh, well, my grandmother used to bake, and I used to feel loved, so let me bake for somebody else. Or someone's baked for me, and you know, I'm feeling loved, so I eat all of the cookies. Or you know, and cleaning your plate, that's something that I think a lot of us are told growing up, or, you know, your eyes are bigger than your stomach, but, you know, don't be wasteful. So yeah, these are all great examples. So thinking about, fast forwarding a little bit and thinking about, what is the food culture in your house now? Many eating at different times, often rushed. Yeah, grabbing and going. Everyone has different schedules. I eat mostly breakfasts and lunches in my apartment and dinners with a group of friends. Okay. Yeah, so different, eating in different environments and, you know, having that social interaction at dinner.
In case you're wondering, there's still people typing. Oh, here we go.
See, my husband started eating in front of the TV because he didn't like my mother coughing during dinner. She's diabetes, still eats in front of the TV. Sometimes I sit at the table by myself. Okay. Yeah, so you know, changes in your home environment can change the way that you're eating food, and yeah, I'm sorry to hear about your mother. Let's see. All right, and someone else has a very structured structured limit? Is that a time limit or a calorie limit? Probably calorie.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we're getting a response. Calories. Okay. All right. We have a few more people typing. Takes much longer to eat. Okay. Yeah. So maybe some of that mindful eating behavior of savoring your food and sometimes growing up it's kind of a contest who can eat the most the fastest and really taking the time to enjoy your meal. All right, so now, we've talked about food culture growing up and then our food culture now. So what sort of themes are you noticing, or is there any carryover between how you ate growing up and how you're eating now? I still eat everything on my plate. Okay. Yeah, so that's a really deeply ingrained message, right? Got a couple more people typing. Don't usually do second helpings anymore. Okay, so that's an adjustment from something that you used to do, and now maybe realizing that it's not as helpful as it used to be. One more person typing. I've learned in the past 10 years to eat half of what I'm given when we go out to eat and take home the rest for another meal. Okay, yeah, so learning about portion sizes and knowing that when you go out to eat, the meal in front of you might be more than one portion. So adjusting for that. Yeah. Thanks for all of the examples. Mm-hmm. I think it really helps personalize personal history. Mm-hmm. All right, yeah, so these are some of some messages or some things that we commonly hear. I was raised on fast food. It was quick and convenient. This is the way I was taught to cook. Maybe following recipes that your mother had or your grandmother, or family mealtime was in front of the TV, so that's how that's how it's comfortable for you to eat. My mom was always on a diet, so yeah, thinking about the messages that you might have received from your parents, even about what's healthy or how to be on a diet or should I be on a diet. And then I was never allowed sweets, so maybe that's where that kind of rebellion piece comes in, that when you became an adult and you were allowed to have sweets because you had money to buy them, and kind of swinging in the other direction. So.
All right. Well, I'll take over from here. So the next thing I want you guys to think about, or I want all of us to think about, is food and body judgments. So again, thinking about, early childhood experiences are really powerful. So maybe thinking about your childhood. I know for some of you, that's been a very long time ago, and there's been other messages since then that have been really powerful, maybe by partners or friends or society as a whole. Just thinking about what messages were sent to you about your body. So how did your parents interact with food and their body? So, for example, I can share that my dad was definitely a comfort eater, and didn't really care that much about his health. and my mom was the opposite. So my mom really, really cared about, how she looked and how her body was. So that's important for me to think about how that's affected me. So I'd love to hear from some of you guys how your parents interacted with food and their bodies, and maybe how that's influenced you. If you want to share, again, no pressure to share, because I know that some of those things are very personal, but remember, it's all anonymous. So yeah. I see there's people typing, so I'll give you all a chance to. Okay, so I see here one person says, both my parents were overweight and developed type 2 diabetes. Dad would eat lots of desserts and just take more insulin. So yeah, so it sounds like your parents also, so your dad would make unhealthy choices and maybe not put his health first. Similar to my dad, yeah. So my father encouraged my mom to eat because he liked his woman to have a little meat on her bones. She was overweight, but he was very slim. Okay. So again, something about physical attraction and body image was linked there in your parents' relationship. And that being said, she dieted frequently and kind of went between that and not eating healthy. Okay. So also a dieting pattern similar to my mom.
I think we missed one.
Oh, did we? I'm sorry, guys. Okay, my mom grew up during the Depression and found food was often scarce. So having big family meals with lots of choices, especially during the holidays, were important to her. Oh, okay, so she dieted frequently. Yes, food scarcity can have a huge impact on family eating patterns, like Kelsey said before, maybe in your genes, but even just in habits you develop. I know my grandma dealt with food scarcity, and I can still see it she would never throw anything out, and she'd always everyone has to clear their plate, and sometimes that's where some of those messages come from. Yeah, and my mom was on a liquid diet in her 30s, but neither struggled with weight until their 50s. So it sounds like there's a lot of people where their parents were dieting during their childhood, either dieting or going the other extreme of just not taking care of their body and their health. So my father was very overweight but loved to cook. He was also the one who told me I was fat. So maybe I didn't want to be like him, but I was only 10. He died young. My mother was very slim and also told me I was fat. I look at pictures of me at 10, I don't think. So those are very, very strong and very negative messages. I'm so sorry to hear that. And they can really influence our relationship with food, our body image, the way we feel about ourselves in ways, because what parents tell us, that's very powerful, and especially as kids, and sometimes that influences us more than we think. But as Kelsey said at the start, what was the Dr. Phil phrase you used?
If you're not aware of it, you can't do anything about it.
Right. So this is more like getting you to think and making you aware of it, and then I can encourage you to maybe on your own reflect a little bit more on that. So I'm just looking at another one here. Growing up, my sisters and I were always on diets, but when our children look at our pictures, they accuse us of being anorexic. So another pattern of having this, so some of those comments there, the lower comments, I see this false body perception of back then I thought this, or I got those messages, but now when I look at that, it's not accurate. So that our body image, the way we see ourselves and the way other people see us, isn't necessarily accurate. It can be very subjective, and diets aren't always based on, and like, oh, I'm fat, I need to be on a diet, but that's not necessarily based on reality. I still see someone typing, so I want to give them a chance to finish that, and while that's still happening, I want you to also think about, and you can start typing that, what judgments were made about other people's bodies. And as I said, it can be about your parents. That's probably like one of the strongest messages we get, that we take to heart the most, is what we learn in our childhood by our parents. But it can also be other people in your life or society as a whole. So I see here, I didn't start dieting until high school. I was fat, lost the weight, but really started gaining in college. Comfort eating over a guy. Yeah, so relationships. And again, there's very strong messages. I've heard a lot of times, oh, after a breakup, you should get a box of donuts, you should sit in your room and eat them all. I don't know if anyone else has heard that, but I've definitely heard that. And so those are strong messages that this is, that, you know, and relating to emotional eating, and it works short term. It's just that can be one of those things where solutions that work for a short term can be a symptom in the present. They work back then, but they don't serve us well now. So my mother had an eating disorder as a teen and has always commented on my weight and appearance. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I had similar experiences with that. So yeah, that can be very powerful, because there's obviously a lot of dysfunctional messages about food that you're being sent by a parent who struggled with eating disorders herself. So it can be tricky teasing apart of what's healthy messages and what's not so healthy messages. So maybe that's one thing to think about. Never heard that, but worked in a coffee shop and we could eat as much as we wanted. Okay, so that's okay. So lots of availability of food, and then food was kind of there to comfort, and when you're working and you're upset, and then that seems to be all that is. It seems like, yeah. Okay, never heard. Yeah, that's what I assumed. Yeah, never heard of. Okay, that's just something people have told me before. So, but yeah, yeah. So again, that was the coping mechanism, it seems, that was available at the time, and it might not work as well now. So I'm going to move on for now, if that's okay with everyone. I think we've processed this a little bit. So just a little bit more about parenting. Do we have any parents in here? Yes. Okay, great. Well, you might be interested in that. So criticism, so we've talked a little bit about criticism. I know some of you mentioned your parents calling you fat, or encouraging you to be in diets. So it brings negative attention to something that the child may not previously have viewed as a problem. So that can be something about your weight, like what some of you shared there, but also eating habits. And that can even be cleaning your plate. Oh my God, you didn't finish your vegetables, and then you didn't clear your plate. Even that is a criticism of eating habits. Maybe you were full at that time and you didn't want any more, but then you feel like you have to finish, and that can lead to eating more than you're hungry for. Okay, and I see someone has grown kids but a young granddaughter, so it might be helpful for that. Yeah. So teasing and criticism lead to shame, and shame is a very negative emotion because it's this all-encompassing feeling of I'm bad as a person, and that doesn't lead to this careful reflection and actually changing behaviors, but that just leads to feeling bad about who you are and having low self-esteem. So it's not a productive emotion, and it's actually linked to a lot of dysfunctional eating patterns. So we want to avoid instilling shame in our children, and criticism does that. So it also sends the message that your self-worth as a person is defined by physical appearance. And we get that a lot in our society already. And so as parents, we should be really careful with what we teach our children, and to teach them healthier messages that maybe, I choose to eat healthy because I care about my body and I care about my health. But being careful with making it about the physical appearance and linking the self-worth to that. There can be lots of other areas that we should distill self-worth in our children, like achievement in school, or being kind to others. So just a couple of parenting tips. So never criticize or tease when it comes to anything. You want to avoid instilling shame in your kids. Be mindful about body comments, and also creating healthy food boundaries for your children. So I know the Brenner Fit people at the Brenner Fitness Center, they talk about the division of responsibility, where the parents decide the what and when to eat, and the children are in charge of how much they eat, and if they choose to eat that. So being a good role model, so maybe modeling that for you, your physical appearance isn't very closely tied to your self-worth, but that it's important for you to be healthy because you care about and respect your body. And then, so exposure to extreme food management leads to extremes in managing food. And that can be a severe restriction or a severe lack of restriction. And really what we're looking for is moderation, right? Mm-hmm. That's what's going to create healthy eating patterns in the end. So if we can model moderation and that to our children, then that could be a good thing. I'd love to hear your comments on that. I also know that we have a couple of parents in here, so I'm wondering if you have any advice of what worked for your kids. Any comments on those on the slide before we move on? Someone typing? Feeling guilty. Well, I can definitely say that that's not, I think every parent makes mistakes, right? And I apologize if this has contributed to this guilt, and that was definitely, yeah, we all make mistakes and we're all the best parent that we can be, right?
This might even go back to, not being aware that, the messages that you were sending to your son were problematic. So maybe that new awareness is an opportunity to make amends.
And it sounds like it's pretty common as parents to send unhealthy messages to kids. We can't get it all perfect, right? I mean, from thinking back about comments in the group and my own experiences, and I'm sure Kelsey, it seems like none of our parents got it 100% right. So I think while these are some tips, it is also that I would say it's very rare that a parent gets them all right, if not impossible. So yeah, I hope that helps. A doctor once told me not to worry about what my kid ate in one meal, but to look at what they ate over a week. Less stress. I think that's really, really great advice. Yeah. Thank you for that. Because maybe they're going through a growth spurt, right? As well. So one trick I had with my daughter was to serve her vegetables as an appetizer. She could have all she wanted. Okay. Great. So instead of making her feel, instead of criticizing her for not eating her vegetables and be like, you didn't eat your vegetables, you reframed it into a positive thing of, here's something that you can have all you want. Yeah. Thank you. And then I'm going to look at one more comment. I like to watch how my daughter eats. She teaches me she's 4 and only eats when she's hungry and only eats the food on her plate that she really enjoys. It helps me counter the whole finish everything on your plate mentality. Yes, we can really learn a lot from children. And children have such great eating habits sometimes naturally, and such a great sense of society of when they're actually full, that, I mean, if we can keep that in them, and, you know, I mean, it usually gets ruined somewhere along the line. If we can keep that, then that'd be amazing. Let me move on. So thank you guys for your advice. So what was the context in which you started engaging in the following behaviors? So who taught them to you? So emotional eating or eating for comfort? I know I remember one of you said earlier that after a bad relationship you turn to food, or after a relationship ended. And also binge eating, if you've seen that maybe in your parents or anyone in your family. And it seems like from what a lot of you were, and I'm just waiting to hear your responses now, so feel free to type and let me know. It seems like a lot of you had experiences with yo-yo dieting that you saw in your parents. I know some of you said your parents were always on diets when you were children. And then also the fourth one is compensatory behaviors to combat large eating episodes. So using exercise, maybe there was guilt associated with eating a large amount of food, and then using exercise to work off the calories, or laxative, or diuretics, which they're the water or fluid pills. They're the ones that make you pee, and then also vomiting. So unhealthy compensatory behaviors. So done the first 3. Have realized over the years I'm addicted to sugar and white flour. Okay. So do you remember where you, if there's anyone that you saw doing the first 3 where you maybe learned that? You don't have to answer in here if you are not comfortable, but maybe that could be something to think about a little bit more. Where did I learn that? Emotional eating and yo-yo dieting seem to go hand in hand in teen years. Trying to deal with so much, then lose weight to keep up with others' expectations. So patterns followed all my life. So expectations, parenting expectations seem to be a big thing, and maybe that's even linked to parental criticism again that created some shame. That's just a guess, so I might be wrong. And then emotional and yo-yo dieting from your mom. Okay, yeah. That's fine. I'll finish it. Yeah. I remember being encouraged not to eat on prom day so that I could eat real big that night. Yes. Didn't learn it from others, but realization came from experience. I can stay off sugar and white flour. Don't overeat, graze a binge. Okay, great. So you've had that moment where you realized, oh, this is what I'm doing, and then being aware of it allowed you to be able to learn from it and change it. Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, there is one more slide, I think. These are some tough questions, so, and I'm not sure I could answer them myself, so maybe some of you have a spontaneous response for them, but really I'm not expecting any, I don't expect any of you to be able to answer them on the spot. So if you do have an answer, please do type it in, but otherwise it's more, maybe write them down and think about them more in the long term, let it simmer and see where you stand with those questions. So one is, what purpose is your weight serving for you? Or is it serving a purpose? Is it not? My initial, maybe your initial reaction of, no, it's not, maybe to think about that. Or if you're like, yes, definitely, to be aware of that. And have or will you sabotage success? So, yeah, thinking about past efforts at weight loss, or even in other areas of life. Are you self-sabotaging? And how about this program? What are things that may lead to you self-sabotaging? You're sabotaging your success in here. Maybe excuses, maybe there is some purpose that your weight is serving. And I don't see anyone typing, and I'm not surprised, because I do realize that those are very tough questions, and as I said, maybe it's more a matter of writing them down and seeing where you stand with that. So this is it from us. I've really enjoyed your participation over this PowerPoint, because it is such a personal topic that we couldn't have done that without your input, and we wouldn't have had anything to go on. So thank you so much, and you've shared some really great things. So thank you, guys.
So we'll end the meeting in just a minute here, but we just want to remind you to fill out the survey at the end so that you can get a Purple point. And to echo Esther, we've just really enjoyed the conversation that we've had today with all of you.
Any last comments, please feel free to share. So, okay, so I have here, I didn't learn, sometimes it isn't a sabotage, but it's just hard to break old habits. Yes, yeah. And I think that's a whole other topic, probably. Yes, old habits are hard to break. So with the sabotage, it's a little bit tricky to think, am I sabotaging myself? So, yeah. My gut reaction would always be no, but then when I think about it, I can probably think of times in the past when I have sabotaged my own success. Maybe imagining a worst case scenario, or and then it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
thank you, guys. And yeah, I think this is our last virtual group, so enjoy your holidays if I don't see you again before that.